Good morning. There are problems arising in this country which are caused by a parliament which is out of control, pretending to be a government when they are not. They are a parliament. They are not sovereign and are not supreme according to the people who framed the Constitution. Obviously they knew what they were talking about. Now, dealing with Mr. Albanese, he talks about my government, referring to himself. There is no my government. There's no such thing. It's a parliament, not a government. They do not put laws together. That is the job of the Executive Council, selected by the Governor-General, under the provisions of 61 to 68 of our Constitution. Have you got that clear? You have the Director of ASIO standing next to you. You're talking about terrorists, traitors, treasoners. You should pick up a mirror and look in it and point at yourself and call yourself those names. Are you a terrorist? Yes, you are. Why? Because the criminal code says for the Parliament to use an experimental drug on the people is an act of terrorism. It's a vaccine, which is an experimental one. That's out of the mouth of the health minister at the time. Every political party just let it go through and ignored it. And you knew it was criminal. If you didn't, what are you doing in our parliament not knowing the law? If you don't know, you have to. You profess to be in authority. So for you to allow the different states to inject people with an experimental vaccine, it's not whether it works or whether it's law, it has any action which will help the people, good or bad. It's an issue, it's experimental. To use it is an act of terrorism on the people. That's number one. Number two, you sat by, probably because Dan Andrews is a good little Labor boy, you allowed him to have people fire on the citizens of this country, the members who are the Commonwealth, the people, fired on them. Were the people throwing knives at them, pointing sticks at them? No, they were running from them. Why? Because they were carrying out a protest. So Dan Andrews decided he could fire on them. That is a terrorist act. Why haven't you done something about it? Why isn't Dan Andrews standing trial? Because you don't have the guts to do it. And you're not going to do it because he's either a Fabian, a Freemason, or a member of the Labor Party. The Labor Party was started and run by the Fabian Society. Like it or lump it, that's a fact. And you know, Bob Hawke was high up in the Fabian. That's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Lie for the better good and all that nonsense. Then you look at what's going on in this country. You and your mob, and the idiots as well, who are in the Liberal Party, Labor, National, puts through legislation that if the United Nations come here, they are exonerated from any prosecution. You are allowing a foreign army to come to this country and do whatever they want without repercussions under our law. First, you can't bring them here. That's an act of terrorism. To allow them to wander freely here and shoot at us, do what they like, and no recourse in law, that's terrorism. You're allowing people to come here on visitors' visas from a war zone. Does everybody agree with what you're doing in that, what's happening in that area? No. Is it our business? No, it's not. So why are they refugees that have to come here when their own Arab states who are Muslim like them won't allow them to go there? Why? Because they don't want them there. They're dangerous. You lie, you cheat, you steal, and sit in our parliament and then claim somehow we're terrorists. And we've got donkeys in Western Australia called public officers that are not police, and they're not police. They're public officers. You can't be both. It's separated by the Criminal Investigation Act as police officers or public officers. A public officer is a creature of statute, can never be an officer of the Crown. Now, legal is all the enactments that have gone through the Parliament in this country since Federation. Definitely is. Because, why? We've never had a lawful Parliament. I just made a list of a few. This is it. Australian Electoral Act 1973. Who said you can have an electoral act? It overrides Section 8. The qualification of electors of senators shall be in each state that which is prescribed by this Constitution or by the Parliament as a qualification for electors of members of the House of Representatives, but in the choosing of senators, each elector shall vote only once. We're not voting only once. The papers require us to vote for, look at that, a political party, or 12 or 20 odd members below the line, or 8 people for the House of Representatives. When we voted in 1999, we voted to retain the system of the Crown, which is, we are a self-governing colony of England. All the rest of your nonsense has gone out the door, including the Australia Act. Australia Citizenship Act 1973, a lie and a fraud, backdated to 1948. It wiped it out. You can't backdate legislation in this country, but that act is out of the Constitution. You have to be naturalised, not become a citizen of Australia. You can't become a citizen of Australia. You can become a citizen of the Commonwealth by way of the Constitution. HCA 44 of 2010. The High Court ruled 1688 Bill of Rights, habeas corpus, look at that. And all other imperial law is law in this country and must be abided by. So where do you get off saying we're an independent nation? We're not. We are a self-governing colony of England. Have we ever had a lawful federal parliament? Absolutely not. The High Court of Australia is our court. All courts are part of a federal judicial system with a High Court sitting at the summit, determined by our Constitution. The framers have clearly made that clear in Chapter 3 that is the case. In the Cable decision, CLR 189 of 1996, which is binding on the courts, judges and people of every state. Aren't politicians people? Yes, they are. So it's binding on them. So if they pass a law in excess of that, that's an act of terrorism when you're taking over our courts, and you have. And now you're making rules that control our court, and you do. Treason, fraud, and terrorism. You're taking away the rights of the people of this country without their permission. That is a terrorist act. You're doing something against the will of the people that harms them greatly. That's terrorism.
Can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later gotta cut you down, sooner or later gotta cut you down. Go tell that long-tongued liar, go and tell that midnight rider, tell the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter, tell him that God's gonna cut him down, tell him that God's gonna cut him down.